welcome back to Let the Record Skip, the favorite podcast of your distant uncle that only shows up for Thanksgiving and takes all the leftovers.
We're your hosts. I'm Austin.
I'm Nick.
Jake.
Todd.
And
Wait,
today...
we were talking over each other, Nick. What's your name again?
I'm Andrew.
Let's keep this in.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So today we got something special planned. It was Bosch's idea, so I'm going to let Bosch take it from here.
Definitely. So for those of you who don't know what Verzuz is, it's a series that was created by Timbaland and Swiss Beats where two big artists go head-to-head and put their 20 biggest hits against each other. So like one artist plays one of their hits and the other plays a hit to counter it. And it's been going on since quarantine pretty much happened. And a lot of big artists have done it. There's been DMX versus Snoop Dogg. There's been Ludacris versus Nelly, Brandy versus Monica. It's just been amazing. And I think it's been really great for the culture, really great for hip hop and R&B and music in general. And what we're going to do here today is make our own little mock versus tournament. We got 5 artists on the docket right now. And we're pretty much going to explain to you who we think would win each matchup and why. I actually made quite a few playlists for all these artists. We'll have them linked in the description below, so you guys can follow along with us. So first off, we got T.I. versus 50 Cent.
All right. So what should we start with? Should we start with point coverage, or should we talk about what we had, as a lineup?
I think we should just go into why we chose each winner and stuff. And
okay, that's simple. All right, who wants to go first?
I could go first if you guys want.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so with T.I. versus 50 Cent, I'm pretty much just going to explain why I think this was a good matchup in the first place, because T.I. was rumored to go against Busta, but then he declined that. And now he's saying he's going against Jeezy. The official page announced T.I. versus Jeezy just a few minutes ago, actually. But personally, I think T.I. versus 50 would be a much better matchup because, let's see, 50's run may have been only from like 2003 to 2007. Those were the years where 50 was the big thing. But during that run, 50 was like the biggest artist in the entire world. And Get Rich or Die Trying, as most of you know, has been a very influential album to hip-hop. And the whole G-Unit movement was massive. Like, everyone was wearing G-Unit clothing, and G-Unit pretty much started this thing where everyone was in a hip-hop crew now.
T.I. tried that, too, with Hustle Gang, which is pretty interesting. I mean, it never really – I don't know if it's still active, but I know they released 2 albums under it. I know – they're not as concise and have a straightforward path like a G-Unit album. They're kind of all over the place in terms of sound and direction, but like there's some few gems on those albums. I mean, the first mixtape had Animal with B.O.B. and T.I. and Travis Scott, which I think has like some of their best verses of all time.
Definitely. So 50 was huge in those years, 2003 through 2007.
Yeah.
And as for T.I., his run lasted a little bit longer than that, because T.I. was never the biggest artist in the world during his run, but he's had hits all throughout since 2003 all the way up to 2014.
Oh, yeah.
Then you go to 50. His big hits in, like, the Get Rich or Die Trying era were, like, In the Club, 21 Questions, P.I.M.P. You had Many Men, which was such an iconic song. And then on The Massacre, which was, like, the best-selling rap album during the first week in its time, that had Candy Shop, Disco Inferno, and Just a Little Bit. So 50's run, 2003 to 2005, he was unstoppable. Every single song he was coming out with was charting in the top 10, and he had a couple number 1 hits. In the Club and Candy Shop, I know, were both number 1s. But then 2007 came, and 50 was kind of dying out a little bit with his album Curtis. We'll get a little more as to why when we discuss another artist we're going to discuss today. But Curtis pretty much only had 2 major hits, AO Technology and I Get Money. And then 50 Cent had 2 other albums, Before I Self-Destruct and Animal Ambition. No one really remembers those albums that much. No one really talks about them.
Animal Ambition kind of came and went.
Who started his relative. Yeah, definitely. So T.I. started pretty much in 2004 is when he started making hits. He had 2 albums before then, I'm Serious and Trap Music. But when Urban Legend dropped, Bring 'Em Out and ASAP were the 2 big singles from that record. And those were like pretty big in the mainstream. And then King had What You Know and Why You Want It and Top Back. And then T.I. versus T.I.P. had Big Things Poppin'. And then 2008 came and T.I. was like officially one of the biggest rappers in the game with Paper Trail. He had Whatever You Like, Live Your Life, and Dead and Gone. Whatever You Like and Live Your Life were both #1 hits, I'm pretty sure. And then afterwards, T.I., his next 2 albums, he didn't really have any hits from those. But then even in 2014, that far into his career, he had a hit with No Mediocre off of Paperwork. So T.I. had a very long run.
Didn't he have About the Money off of Paperwork too?
Yeah, About the Money was also on Paperwork.
Yeah.
So as you could see, 50's run was a lot shorter than T.I.'s. But during 50's run, he was the biggest artist in the world. And that's why I got to say, even though when I was tallying up the score with the playlist that I made, I have 50 winning 10 rounds and T.I. winning 10 rounds. But overall, I got to give this to 50 just because of the influence of his hits. He has less of them than T.I., but the ones he does have were so impactful to hip-hop and done so much for the culture and influenced so many people that you can't deny it. 50 definitely would have this over T.I., and that's why I choose him as my winner.
Yeah, when 50 releases a hit, it just hits. Like it's bound to gain traction, especially overnight.
Yeah, and those first 2 albums, like I lived through the time period where 50 was huge. A fun fact is 50 was actually the first rapper I ever heard of by name. So Get Rich or Die Trying was one of the first rap albums I ever bought. And that pretty much was one of the albums that shaped my taste in hip-hop going forward. So 50 Cent was definitely a huge part of my upbringing and getting into rap music.
Yeah, for sure. All right. If you want to give it to 50, we got 1 for 50 then. Anybody want to go next? Any volunteers?
Well, since Bosch basically has a tie, I also had a tie as well. Just
Okay.
Each matchup, and basically my picks were Rubber Band Man, PIMP, I Get Money, ASAP, Many Men, 21 Questions, Magic Stick, Crack a Bottle, Patiently Waiting, Hate It or Love It, fucking classic that is. About the Money, Big Shit Poppin', My Love, You Don't Know Me, You Know What It Is, Just a Little Bit, Ball, Soldier, What You Do, Candy Shop, and that was it. That's the tie. You got 10, you got 10. But I will say if I'm going to pick a winner, I think I would also probably pick T.I. because, first of all, you have the longevity that, Bosch speaks to, just going all the way back even in 2002, 2003 with trap music and Urban Legend and those defining trap albums of those the early 2000s era, and kind of right as that bling era was starting to take off, and kind of him at that era coming back with King and really transcending that at the time, and then really kind of going a little more pop rap after that. But ultimately he's always been able to circulate the genre that he's godfathered with, always having some sort of contribution to trap. Even if you want to extend it to 2015, he narrated Rodeo, which is an album.
Oh yeah, facts. Yeah, I forgot about that actually.
That's maybe not musically as much a contribution for T.I., but he was a part of another album that pretty much transformed the genre of trap music. And that's another thing if you want to get into things like proteges, T.I. having guys like Travis being cool with, other artists.
B.O.B.
Yeah, B.O.B.
Yeah, he brought up a lot of good artists. I'm like blanking on a lot of them, but like
Azalea, Young Dro back in the day, he had that song.
Yeah. I forgot about Young Dro and Iggy. I forgot he brought up Iggy. He regrets that, I bet.
Pretty sure.
Yeah. I think he actually went on record and said that he regretted it. I don't know. I'm not going to speak for him.
So yeah, what I was saying is, even though 50 was a bit more influential on music as a whole. T.I.'s influence on trap music is undeniable. Him,
Yeah.
Jeezy, and Gucci are three godfathers of the genre.
I think what's interesting too is you speak to the influence of T.I. on trap music and eventually the creation of things like drill and all that. And I feel like what 50 really accomplished was bringing an abrasive, aggressive East Coast sound to pop rap, and didn't have contributions to trap or anything like that, but really kind of reinvented what hip hop could be and the boastful, hedonistic sense that it was kind of turning toward the late 90s, especially on the East Coast. But I feel like it was a very short-lived, powerful, intense run that it did impact a lot of things. It was a great time to live through it. Again, like you said, 50 Cent was one of the first rappers that, I as a young child had conceived of. Everybody knew of In the Club by 2004 or 5, in kindergarten, first grade. I remember knowing of that song, not knowing what it's about. You just know the fucking chorus. And
Same.
Yeah. So, it's memories like that and just acknowledging the legacy of Get Rich and Die Trying. But I feel like both have contributed a lot of great hits and momentum to their peers. But again, I go with T.I. just out of personal preference for discography and the longevity and that influence that he's had more directly with artists. Although Pop Smoke I'm a fan of, so shout out 50 for
50 finally did find a good protege in him.
Yeah. And then he died, so that's unfortunate. Rest in peace.
They also had the game around 2005, but then they started beefing.
I know.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that because that was, like I said, Hate It or Love It's a classic. That's one of my favorite West Coast hip hop singles of all time. And, it sucks that they couldn't figure out more records, later on, maybe have more longevity in both of their careers. But
I think they made up around 2016 in a strip club or something.
Probably.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
I bet it was too late musically, though. At least.
Yeah. So, I guess I'll go because I'm kind of gonna build off of what Nick just said. So I gave this a lot of thought. This was like one of the ones that I put a lot of thought into because I love T.I. I love to put on for T.I. and I really do love 50 Cent. I think it was kind of dirty to put so many of his hits on here. Like it's so dirty. Like this list is just unfair to T.I.'s account because when it comes to T.I. got to give it to him on album cuts. Like T.I. is somebody you look forward to for deep album cuts, and I think 50's a great hit rapper. But if you're looking for deep album cuts, he does have them, but they're not as quality as T.I. has with the longevity on top of that and the way he's been able to adapt like seamlessly. I had 50 at 15 hits and T.I. at 5. Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I think it's a little unfair to T.I.'s advantage because if there were more like album cuts to this that I was more familiar with, I probably would have been swayed more towards a 10-10 score, maybe more in T.I.'s favor on some of these songs, but I don't know. I think 50 Cent just really made a mark whenever he dropped a hit, and T.I. is somebody that has just adapted and stayed strong. Like we talked about the Libra last week, and it's a great comeback since Paperwork, and I think it's just amazing that T.I. has just been somebody that's been able to hold his own. And Nick bringing up his proteges being Travis Scott, B.O.B., Bosch bringing up Young Dro and Iggy. It really does show that T.I. has a good ear and he knows what he's doing when he wants to craft a hit, but he selflessly gives it to those people. I have no doubt that T.I. could craft something of this magnitude, but I feel like he's just as included in the process of these albums that are becoming iconic hit driven albums like Iggy Azalea's where she blew up, or Travis Scott when he blew up because of working with T.I. and Kanye. And you brought up him narrating Rodeo. Like I firmly believe that T.I. deserves credit in those aspects, especially B.O.B. as well. So while I had 50 winning on the board, I honestly, after this discussion, have to give it to T.I., which actually surprises me because I went into this laughing, saying that 50 was going to win. But yeah, T.I. wins just based off influence, longevity, and just like the way he's been able to adapt. I can't stress it enough that T.I. is one of these rappers that's just still going strong after 20 years.
Definitely. And I want to go back to what you guys said about his album cuts being his best tracks. Like,
Yeah.
Verzuz did more album cuts than just the hits. I definitely have T.I. winning as well because some of T.I.'s album cuts, like, hit me right in the heart. Like, No Mercy, Castle Walls, Guns N' Roses off Trouble Man. Those songs are like,
yeah, Guns N' Roses is one of my favorite T.I. songs. The one that he has with Akon too is one of my favorite. I think that's off Trouble Man or Paperwork. I can't remember.
like when T.I. gets deep and introspective, that's when I think his best.
And that's why the Libra shines, since Paperwork. It's just it gets to that introspective viewpoint that he has currently, and I think that's something that he hasn't really given in a few years.
And I was really surprised that I chose 50 over T.I. because T.I.'s in my top 10. He's one of my favorite rappers ever. 50 I wouldn't even say is in my top 40. But when you look at overall influence, I just got to give it up to 50 because when he was big, he was like the only rapper who existed at the time.
Yeah.
So maybe like Eminem and like Nelly and stuff.
Yeah.
I also chose 50 Cent. Of the tracks that were listed, I just enjoyed his more. I mean, there was a few T.I. songs I liked, but if I had to give it a number, it would probably be 15-5, like Austin said. I've never really got into T.I. that much. I've always been more partial to 50 Cent, but I can understand what T.I. did for the genre of trap music, and he's still more prevalent today than 50 Cent is because, I mean, 50 hasn't really released anything worth anything in over 10 years. So
we're waiting on that Street King Immortal album that was announced a few years ago, but it doesn't seem like there's any weight with that.
Right?
I'm pretty sure Street King Immortal is like shelved now because he left Shady. I think he has to remake it or something like that.
I don't think that's ever going to come out. Honestly, the last good thing 50 made for me was that We Up single in 2013 he had with Kendrick. I thought that was a song that I actually heard and came across like recently and still kind of like.
See, I mean, that would have been a good comparison if we would have done We Up versus Memories back then and did like a Kendrick feature type of round in this. I was actually wondering if Memories back then was on here when you were gonna make the playlist.
Yeah, I was trying to focus mainly on the hit songs for the playlist because that's pretty much what Verzuz usually does when they have their matchups. I think.
For sure.
I think only a couple times they played like album cuts. Like I think when Ludacris versus Nelly, they played a couple album cuts from them.
Yeah. Okay, so do we want to move on to round two?
Yep, let's just take a vote first just to refresh everyone. Everyone who voted 50, hands up. Yep, and then everyone who voted T.I.
It's a tie.
Yep.
Hell yeah. That's actually a really good round then.